My video essay is called Revolt and Justice, Analysis of Promising Young Women Through a Killjoy Lens. First, we have the summary. In the film Promising Young Woman, made in 2020, the main character Cassie is a medical school dropout. She lost her best friend Nina to suicide after Nina was raped and her rapist was acquitted of all charges. After Nina's passing, Cassie decides to wreak havoc on Nina's rapist and all of the people who contributed to Nina's rapist not being held accountable. My argument is that in my analysis of Promising Young Woman, I found that Cassie's character is a monstrous killjoy feminist. She fulfills all 10 principles of being a killjoy feminist. Cassie also follows the themes of other feminist literature like The Monstrous Feminine by Barbara Creed and ideas from challenging male entitlement and patriarchy. Some of the characters that are important include Ryan, who is Cassie's boyfriend. They met in medical school, but only started dating years after Cassie dropped out. Nina is Cassie's best friend, who committed suicide and was also a medical student with her. Al Monroe is Nina's rapist, who has lived a life free of consequences and is about to get married. Lastly, Gail owns a coffee shop where she is Cassie's boss and only friend. Next, we have some concepts and terms. Killjoy feminism is a term created by Sarah Ahmed. It is a type of feminism that focuses on challenging and changing our society in favor of equality and not pleasing others. Sexual consent is used to explain an enthusiastic yes given for sexual activity that is fully voluntary. Lastly, rape culture explains how multiple aspects of our society normalize sexual assault and how it affects all aspects of our life. To begin, Principle 1 states, I am not willing to make happiness my cause. It is often made into a specific requirement. You are asked to do something in order to make others happy. This connects to the film because Cassie drops out of medical school and decides to live at home even though almost every person in her life advises her not to. Instead of pleasing her parents, she works a low-paying job and lives at home. She would rather upset others than go back to school and surround herself with the people who hurt her best friend. Principle 2 states, I am willing to cause unhappiness. Not making happiness your cause can cause unhappiness. A killjoy is willing to cause unhappiness. There are multiple moments in this film where Cassie causes unhappiness. My personal favorite would be when she is brought home from the bar by a man named Neil. He attempts to take advantage of her because he thinks that she is drunk. When she reveals that she is not drunk, he freaks out and becomes extremely uncomfortable. He states,
Are you some kind of psycho or something?
Why'd you say that?
I just thought that you were...
Drunk?
Yeah!
Really drunk?
Fuck. Yeah?
Well, I'm not. But that's good, isn't it?
I think you should leave.
Moments later, he says,
What are you trying to say, that I'm like a predator or something?
and Nina responds saying,
I don't know. Are you?
I'm a nice guy.
This question is to create self-reflection and is deliberately made to make him uncomfortable with his actions. This part of the film also relates to some ideas found in Barbara Creed's book, The Monstrous Feminine. In this book, Creed proposes 7 different faces of the monstrous feminine. Each face represents how women are viewed in horror movies. While Promising Young Woman is not a horror movie, some of the male characters in this movie, like Neil and Al, may have viewed their experience with Cassie as scary because she exposes the horror of who they truly are. They treat women horribly, and when they are exposed to this fact, they are frightened of Cassie. She was a reminder of who they truly are, and of course, they are not good guys that they claim to be. Out of the 7 faces of the monstrous feminine, Cassie mostly represents the witch. Though Cassie is not a witch, she seems like one to the men in the story. She tricks evil men into thinking she is drunk because they want to take advantage of her. When she reveals she is not drunk, the men are immediately shocked and horrified. They no longer want to have sex with her. A quote from Creed's book that summarizes this idea is, she is thought to be dangerous and wily, capable of drawing on her evil powers to wreak destruction on the community. Another major similarity is at the end of the film when Cassie is killed and then her body is burned, just as witches were during the medieval times. This is because they are afraid of her power and of her truth. In Creed's most recent book, called Return of the Monstrous Feminine, she directly discusses Promising Young Woman as being a new wave rape revolt film. She discusses Cassie's strategic actions and states, "The protagonist of Promising Young Woman seeks to avenge her best friend, while simultaneously exposing the horror of rape culture among college fraternities by holding responsible everyone involved." When I watched this film, I felt like revenge was not the right word to describe Cassie's goals. Creed's explanation enabled me to connect the puzzle pieces and recognize Cassie's overall goal was to expose what happened to her best friend, and most importantly, prevent it from happening to other women. To continue with the principles, Principle 3 states, "I am not willing to support others who are willing to cause unhappiness." A killjoy might first recognize herself in that feeling of loneliness, of being cut off from others, from how they assemble around happiness. This is especially true for Cassie. Her only friend is her boss, Gail. Gail is extremely caring and supports Cassie. She attempts to find Cassie a better job, supports her in her new relationship, and checks on her when she seems down. For example, one day at work, Gail checks on Cassie and says,
"Johnny said he saw you at the Fallout last week, said you were completely hammered and on your own. He was a little worried. I know it's none of my
He must have
business."
seen someone else. I've never been there.
This is an example of Gail directly giving Cassie her immediate support. She never judges Cassie's for her actions and only wants the best for her. Principle 4 states, "I am not willing to laugh at jokes designed to cause offense." Throughout the film, there are some small moments where Cassie does not respond positively or react to jokes when they are said. A small example of this would be when Madison and Cassie are having lunch as they discuss Nina. Madison jokes and says,
"Crying wolf."
Cassie does not laugh or ignore her comment. Instead, she says,
For your sake, I was hoping you'd feel different by now.
Cassie was not afraid of how Madison would feel by this statement. She confronts her directly and is not concerned by her feelings. Instead, she makes Madison think about her actions and how they affect others. Principle 5 states, "I'm not willing to get over histories that are not over. Many times people will declare some injustices are over. You become the open wound because you won't let things heal." There are two different ways this can be interpreted in the film. One is that Cassie recognizes that the legal system is flawed, and that the way the university deals with rape is flawed. She knows these systems failed Nina and confronts the dean of their old university, and she also confronts Al Monroe's defense attorney. Even though it happened years ago, Cassie still believes her best friend deserves recognition and justice. This moment in the dean's office reminded me of a quote from the Challenging Male Entitlement and Patriarchy. She also analyzed this film and stated, "The film's narrative raises the very problematic issue of consent and its shifty meanings, as well as that of the destructive position of women as bystanders. It is not only male desire and entitlement that undo Nina. The final blow is arguably delivered by the other women's acquiescence in the male privilege." I think this quote perfectly explains why the storyline chose to have men and women mistreat Nina. A man, Al Monroe, is the rapist, but other people, including women, decide to protect him and deny claims or choose to ignore the truth, just like the dean of students. The second way Principle 5 can be interpreted is when Cassie visits Nina's mother. Cassie brings up that she feels guilt and responsibility for not being with Nina the night that she was assaulted. Even though Nina is gone, Cassie still holds guilt for not being there and even apologizes to Nina's mom. Her mom responds saying,
"You need to stop this. It isn't good for any of us. It's no good for Nina. It isn't good for you. Look, I know you feel bad that you weren't there, but you gotta let it go."
This proves that Cassie can't let go of what happened to her best friend, especially because Nina never received justice. Principle 6 states, "I am not willing to be included if inclusion means being included in a system that is unjust, violent, and unequal." This directly relates to Cassie because even though she was talented and could have become a doctor, she quits medical school because she would never be a part of a system that does not listen or acknowledge victims. She would have been successful and rich, but none of that was worth it to her. Principle 7 states, "I am willing to live a life that is deemed by others as unhappy. I am willing to reject or to widen the scripts available for what counts as a good life." Cassie quits medical school, lives at home, works at a small coffee shop, has minimal friends and minimal money because she would rather live an unhappy life than be a part of a toxic environment and system where she lost her best friend. Principle 8 states, I am willing to put the hap back into happiness. One history of happiness is that the history of removal of its hap, such as happiness, is defined not in terms of what happens to you, but of what work you do. Cassie does not want anything in return for what she does. The only thing she wants is justice for her best friend. She works extremely hard to confront the people who hurt her best friend and even gave her life for justice. She died trying to give Al Monroe the karma and legal justice that he deserved. In the end, her hard work pays off and Nina's rapist gets arrested. Principle 9 states, I am willing to snap any bonds, however precious, when those bonds are damaging to myself or others. In the film, Cassie ends her relationship with Ryan when she finds out that he was involved in her best friend being raped. She immediately ends the relationship with no regrets or sympathy. Not only does she end her relationship, she uses him to find out where Al Monroe is. When Ryan pleads with her to not share any information or break up with her, she says,
They've changed so much since we were at school, haven't
Think
they?
about this, please,
I
please.
cannot begin to tell you how much I've thought about it.
A moment later, he responds saying,
You gotta forgive me. Tell me to forgive me.
No.
This moment was extremely difficult for her, especially because she thought she could finally have trust in someone new. Principle 10 states, I am willing to participate in a killjoy moment. There are multiple parts of this film where Cassie creates a killjoy moment. There are many events that are difficult and thoroughly planned by Cassie in order to seek justice for Nina. For example, at the bachelor party, Cassie puts drugs in the alcohol in order to make all the bachelors pass out by the time she is alone with Al. Another example is when Cassie kidnaps Dean Walker's daughter in order to make the dean have a new perspective on Nina's rape case. Lastly, and most importantly, Cassie gives her life for justice. She knew going into the bachelor party that it could cost her her life, but it was a risk she was willing to take. In conclusion, Cassie from Promising Young Woman is a strong female character who is a monstrous killjoy feminist throughout the entirety of the film.